Thank you so much. Wow, my mind is blown. I'd like to call back all of our panelists, Pauline, Lorenzo, and stay here, Gabedo. It has been great to hear from you. I'd like to actually start with a question for you. I'm always curious about, food banks. They play such an important role, actually, in markets all over the world to really support the needs of vulnerable populations. And I've wondered, are you communicating with other food banks and other locations to share knowledge, ideas, and best practices? The impact that you're doing is so localized, but by doing this, of course, all of you can like learn from each other and do better in the work that you're doing locally. So I just wondered, like, what is the relationship with other food banks around the world, and how closely are you collaborating?
Absolutely. Thank you, Christine. So we collaborate with first nationally, and we collaborate continentally. We also collaborate globally. Globally, we collaborate with a global food banking network, which is in Chicago, which we have regular meetings with them to update them, share knowledge, share ideas, tell them our plans, our strategic plans, our management, our governance structure. So that takes place at the continent, at the global level, at the continental level too, because food banking is just coming up in Africa. Just a few African countries are really the forefront. South Africa is there, Kenya is there, Botswana, a few of them, yeah. But in Nigeria, we also have Lagos Food Bank, which is barely like 5, 6 years old. So we collaborate, and recently, they like a few like 2 weeks ago, there was a workshop for all African food banks that was held in Kenya and was facilitated by the Global Food Banking Network. So there's a lot of integration, collaboration, sustainable exchange of ideas, building on knowledge across food banks that is helping us to leverage on lessons learned in order to have more innovative programs to meet our targeted clientele.
That's
Thank you, Christine.
amazing. I love to hear that because collaboration is the future. I have some questions from the audience, but before I dive into those, I wanted to ask you, Pauline, the same question, which is, all of the work that you're leading in the city of London can be a beacon, a blueprint for municipalities all over the world. So, how are you sharing and collaborating with other cities and other locations?
Yeah, well, it's really important for us to collaborate with other cities in the work we do in food, but also across all sectors to reduce waste. We are actually involved in a number of European programs. So I didn't mention in my presentation, but we are part of a program called Food Wave, which is about incentivizing young people to reduce waste, care about food, and thinking about their diet. And so the lead city for this program is Milan, but there are 15 cities, in Europe and also Sao Paulo in America that are taking part of this program. And we are also a supporter of something called the Circular Cities Declaration, which is about kind of cities committing to reduce their waste and develop the circular economy. And obviously, food is a big part of that. So yeah, really important for us to share what we learn here, and also hear from others to get inspired.
Amazing. Lorenzo, are you there? I can't.
Yeah, sorry, I just called up for something else. I'm here.
Oh, okay. Do you have time for a question now, or should we come back to you?
Yes, of course.
Oh, I just wanted to ask you really quickly about, do you have competitors?
Good question. I mean, we get told all the time that everyone has competitors, right? So a competitor is just someone who offers a product or service that can provide, that can solve a similar problem to the one that you do. So in our case, when we're talking about, managing grain storage, you've got those kind of, manual probes that I was talking about earlier, and static sensing solutions. You've got, in a sense, fumigants and pesticides are a way of maintaining the quality of the stock. So they're not, they're quite different from what we do, and I think in a way they can be complementary to what we do. but they're still kind of competitive in the traditional sense.
Yeah, love it. And all of you have hit on a message I love to espouse, which is collaboration is your competitive advantage. So, like you said, complementary solutions, in the same space is exciting. We have a number of questions coming from the audience, which I'd love to get to. First, over to you, Gabedbo. Several Nigerians have been duped owing to fake and illegal funding sites on the internet. What do you think can be done to stop such illegal activities from henceforth? Hey, it's not just in Nigeria. I mean, we've seen what's happened globally. Crypto, these types of issues are rampant. Do you have any advice?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Cyber security is the in thing. In this digital age, we need to, in order to curb being duped, or in order to curb any of these problems of financial. So we need to put in place a more rigorous financial regulations, as well as cyber security policies that will help to reduce being duped or any of these problems. So it's possible, it's doable. Of course, that doesn't mean that it will not happen, but we just need to keep being innovative in putting in place the right financial regulations, as well as cyber security policy frameworks to help reduce such challenges.
Yeah, we
Thanks.
talked in the previous section about like systems-based solutions. And, in my work, we are working with entrepreneurs across Africa and in Nigeria. And it's extremely challenging to get even nominal amounts of funding to some of these like startups, like a lot of the cash transfer services don't work. And so I believe when we're looking at food tech and ag tech, we also need to be looking at fintech and, social solutions and all of these things, because it's just, there's not exactly one shot you can take that is going to solve this. There's, everybody needs to be working together holistically. And of course, then looking at unintended consequences and mitigating adverse impacts, e.g., things like cybersecurity and scams. So lots to think about when you're trying to drive forward change. I wanted to ask you, Pauline, about the question about food waste. How do you save the excess food, which is, received from restaurants? How do you distribute that to those in need without much hassle?
Okay, so that's a really good question, and there are actually several models in place in London that do that right now. One of the challenge from food waste coming out of restaurants specifically is that usually the use by date will come very quickly compared to other food that maybe wholesaler or retailers will produce. So that's a big challenge. So we've seen like lots of different things, from an app called Too Good To Go that connect restaurants with consumer citizens, and that enable restaurants to sell their surplus food for a much reduced price to citizens. And the only thing is that the consumer may not choose exactly what they will get, but it's a great way to reduce food waste, and also also enabling people to accept food for like a reduced price, which is a good thing right now, as we kind of living in a cost of living crisis that's quite critical. Another type of model are like kind of large charities running some kind of redistribution hubs that collect food waste from food businesses and redistribute them to charities that need them. So yeah, lots of models in place, but I think right now the challenge is really to kind of scale those operations, because it only represents like a small part of all the food waste that is produced by food businesses right now.
And are there legal issues and safety issues with regards to like restaurant waste that goes directly to consumers? How are those being addressed?
Well, the player in that space, they are kind of respecting all the regulations in place, and so I guess it's a lot of kind of logistics involved to make sure the food is fit for health and for purpose. But once again, that put some constraints on the operation, that put some cost into it. But yeah, it's something that all those players are managing to do in London.
Yeah, nice. I recently held an event in the US in Brooklyn, and we donated our food waste, actually very seamlessly via an app. And we had to pay a small fee, but actually they have like a gig economy type setup where kind of people like they use the fee to pay people to come pick up the waste, and then they donate it to vulnerable populations. So, as an event, we felt great, like from the sustainability side. And then also, you are supporting people who are in need to get the food that they need, and also workers to have an additional income stream. So I found it like a quite nice, seamless, easy to use solutions. And I think that these are the types of nudges we need in the world, actually, to make things easy. So in that vein, Lorenzo, like, how easy is it to use Clover? Is it pretty accessible for people to get their hands on and use in their operations?
We're working on making it, making the experience easier and easier for especially the wide variety of grain storage operators that we deal with. Because from what we've seen so far, from a farmer to the other farmer, but especially between a farmer and a grain merchant and a cooperative, they tend to do things quite differently. We've seen both geographic differences, but even within the same country and sector, we see people doing things extremely differently. And I think that's been one of the challenges that we've had to deal with, kind of trying to develop the system in a way that works for the widest range of grain storage operators. I think we've been somewhat successful in that so far, but I think there's still improvement to be had. And as we launch commercially, I think we're going to see things that possibly we haven't seen so far as well. But we've taken all the feedback that we received so far, and we've made it easier and then more user friendly. We've spent on the export of the app and of the hardware,
yeah, that constant iteration, is necessary, especially with hardware solutions. We have a great question from Kyle Bradshaw, who's asking, speaking of unintended consequence, how much revenue would farmers lose if 1/3 of their food wasn't wasted? Because not everything could be donated or still be used by everyone. So yeah, what happens if the food wasn't wasted?
Is that for me?
You could take it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really interesting question. Might not be the best person to answer that one, but I think ultimately we've seen a lot, especially recently in the UK, where supermarkets weren't passing on the extra profits to farmers, and with a reduction in production, it just had very severe consequences to farmers. So I think there's always a need to be more resilient in the production and make sure that the losses are reduced. And I think it's quite unlikely that the revenue would be reduced. If anything, would probably be improved because of the better margins. But I think we might have better economists on this call who can.
Yeah. Does anybody else have a reaction to that about
Yeah, maybe I would just like to say that, with the food wasted, it's a loss of value for everyone, really. I guess you could turn the question in the other head, like, what if, all the money we put into our food was put into the food that we actually use? And then it just means like more money for like less food. So it's just mean more from the farmers that produce it. So it's just, I think, no one has any interest of, wasting food in the supply chain ultimately. So it's about making sure that we use this as a fullest, and we and I guess we pay the right price for the farmers to produce it in a way that is regenerative for our soil, and that make sure that the food loop is preserved.
Yeah, and I think it's like somebody else. Oh well, it's Ify is making the point that we can prevent food loss on the farm, right? We can prevent it in the first place. We can prevent food waste and loss around the supply chain, not just at that consumer level, but also, I mean, there's so much variability about the standards and quality of, for example, fresh produce that's demanded by different players in the food chain. And so like we've worked with a company that's really using some like logistics solutions to take, for example, avocados and say, you're at the right, quality point to go towards this buyer who's using it for smoothies. And this buyer needs it a little bit more fresh for this purpose. And so you can really like even optimize at that warehousing level before it then hits supermarket shelves. And then of course, there's exciting solutions at the consumer level. I actually just bought the other day avocados made with a peel. Have you guys heard of a peel's solution where they actually have a coating around the avocado peel that, extends its shelf life? And so all of these, different solution areas can help to reduce waste. And we know that our food waste is contributing substantially to the climate crisis. But to your point, Kyle, I think there is this opportunity around optimization of growing. Right now, we have like this patchwork of decentralized farms, and we can indeed prevent waste by helping farmers know what to grow, when, and then making sure that there's like that appropriate market for what they do grow. And this is where I think a lot of like the data solutions can link in and help a lot. But we need everybody fighting on all fronts, right, to make sure that our food waste is reduced. And so, as Kyle says, yes, better distribution and preservation, for instance, does seem very obvious at this point. So I wanted to ask you, when it comes to food sustainability, is there like a misconception that you find most people have? And what is that misconception? And what would you say is a way to overcome that? Maybe starting with you, Gbedebo.
Yeah. So one of the misconceptions, especially as we just the COP27 was wrapped up, was uh, some controversies whether the climate change is actually real or not. Especially if you look at the last regime in the US, whether even US being the biggest country in the world. No- that pulled out of the Paris Agreement and saying, okay, all this climate change were not really so. So there have been controversies, and with of course now with the current regime and increasing involvement of the of G27, the global the COP, there's now reduction in that controversies. And I think one of the solutions that was arrived at the COP 27 in Egypt is the whole idea around climate reparations. And because a particular region has not really contributed to that challenge of the climate change, and that region seems to be suffering the most on the problem. So, and that region, especially the global south, especially Africa, will not be able to contribute as much financially like the global north. So that idea of coming up with climate reparation is really dear to my heart, and I think it will be one of the game changers that will help to solve the problem, and also enhancing sustainability within the food systems, and also helping to reduce increasing. If you look at the latest report of the state of food insecurity in the world, you see that we're not doing very well. The future is really precarious for hunger and malnutrition and wasting among children. So looking at this piece of this missing piece of climate reparation and accelerating the implementation of such intervention could help to enhance our food system sustainability. Thanks, Kristen.
Yeah, I mean, it seems cruel that we are having this rising food insecurity, countries whose farmers' livelihoods are being decimated by climate change, and at the same time, a third of our food is wasted. I mean, it's a cruel irony and something that we have the chance to solve. Pauline, what about you? What's a misconception that people have about food and the food system, and what can we do to overcome it?
Yeah, well, I guess the biggest one is how we see food waste and the value we put into it. And one of the thing is, like food businesses, they have to actually pay to dispose of their food waste. And I think the thing they need to think of is, how can I, because I'm paying for this, can I pay for this food surplus to go somewhere where it can be eaten? And it's sometimes hard for redistribution businesses to ask for a fee from businesses, but as soon as you label it as waste, they're ready to do it. So I think there is something about how we consider food waste, and it's something for households too as well, to think about.
Absolutely. And Lorenzo, what about you?
But I think one that is close to my heart is the fact that a lot of people often think of the food sector as being a kind of low technology type of sector. We really all style technologies, and I think that's probably true because that's what most farmers use. But at the same time, we've been seeing a growing level of automation on the fields. You've got tractors that can do full routes and activities on their own, either remotely controlled or entirely on their own. We just came back a few weeks ago from EMA International in Bologna, where there was a stream of really high tech solutions, which are probably even higher tech than some of the tech that you see for space. So I think this idea that the agriculture industry is just adopting technologies that come from somewhere else, I think we're a little bit kind of hoping to help change a bit by implementing our novel technology first in the agriculture sector, even though it can potentially be applied further down the line in other sectors. But I think that we can, that not myself but other people could do to help in that make a positive change in that sense, is that a lot of other sectors see much faster technology adoption, because to make new technologies low cost and widely adopted enough, it takes a lot of capital and investments. And there are other sectors that have already that cycle of high amounts of capital that go into new ventures, and then the profits from that go into new and so on. And I think the agriculture sector is kind of just getting started in that sense, especially for like hardware solutions. So we just need to push them more and then create more capital to get the cycle going a bit faster.
Oh my gosh, music to my ears. This is like always what I talk about. I mean, how we can get people excited about all of the opportunities to bring technology and innovation into this space. I mean, we are on spaceship Earth, so space age tech can be applied here, and there's no, more important and transformational sector than our food system. And so I think, you at Crover are like, again, a beacon for what is possible. And, starting with food and food waste and preventing food loss that can be taken, to so many other realms. So very exciting. I know we just have a couple of minutes left. And again, I'm so sorry. I'm like suffering from a massive cold right now. But I just wanted to have each of you kind of leave with some parting thoughts for our audience. We're here at World Soil Day. It's International Day of Banks. What the heck do these two days have to do with each other? Well, a lot actually, because we need to fund the transition to regenerate our soils and make our food systems more abundant. Over to you. Excuse me.
Yeah, happy to pick that one up. So I guess for me, what I will take back from this is, the necessity of collaboration, and we see that at city level. And I guess one take back for the audience is think about the role of cities in what you're doing. Like local authorities want to take their part and to support the transition, and we are like a key player that can bring people together, like the innovators, like Crover or other innovators that can help businesses doing the right thing, and that can encourage people to do the right thing as well. So yeah, think about engaging with the cities you operate in. I think that would be a good start.
Lorenzo?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things going through my mind right now, but I think in terms of parting thoughts, we talked a lot about how there is the need for a variety of solutions, and they need to be agreed with each other. So I think we just need, especially now post-Brexit in the UK, we just need more of a push from DEFRA and the government for more wider solutions, even ones that maybe we haven't seen. And I think I wish we can see a positive push in that direction, in a kind of increasing funding, especially 100% contribution from the government in the next months. That would be nice. Although it seems to be going the other direction right now.
Gabebo, the final word is with you. What's your final message for all of us on World Soil Day and International Day of Banks?
Yeah, thank you, Christine. A collaborative intervention, strategic alliances in an innovative manner would be awesome, because today being a day that where World Soil Day coincides with International Day for Banks, I think it helps us to further rethink and reframe our solutions in a more innovative and more collaborative manner. Government, private sectors, all of them coming together to find better solutions. And it also helps us to also rethink, in the sense that sometimes we think that old methods are really not functional again. Sometimes our old grammars, our solutions may actually be what we're looking for, especially with the soils. So if we could think along that line, I think that will really help us make a big solution to what the future holds for us. Yeah, thank you.
Old meets new, just like we're seeing in the screen right now.
Hi.
Not that you're old, don't read into that. But the new ideas meeting the kind of ancient wisdom, I think is a wonderful parting message.